Hey, soldiers, BlackRock is out there forecasting the mother of all recessions. Add to that, a major bank is saying that unemployment is going to reach levels that may surprise you. Now, what do you need to do to survive this? Because all of these major financial institutions are saying it's got the potential to get really bad here. But I think we feel that too. We feel the general malaise in the air, okay? Because we know that, the good times rolled on for quite some time, but we spent a lot of money and now it's time to pay the piper. So let's jump right into it. Start talking about what these companies are forecasting and then how we need to behave in order to not just survive this thing, but to thrive it. Because believe it or not, this period that we are getting into and about to be going through, it's going to be one of the best times to make a whole lot of money. All right, so BlackRock, you all know who they are. Major investment firm, got their hands in everything. BlackRock says, get ready for a recession unlike any other. And what worked in the past will not work now. The global economy has entered a period of elevated volatility, and previous investing approaches won't work anymore. A recession is imminent, but central banks won't be able to support markets this time by loosening policy, according to, again, BlackRock. Recession is foretold as central banks race to try to tame inflation. It's the opposite of past recessions. Now, we know that the Fed has gone ahead and raised the interest rates and is going to continue to do so. We're seeing that not only in America, but in other major economies of the world. The thinking is, let's go ahead and make money more expensive so we can slow down this economy and bring this inflation down, which is killing everybody, especially those on a fixed income. But with that comes another type of pain. You slow economic activity down, it's going to affect small businesses and it's going to affect employees. Okay, small business is the biggest business in America. More from BlackRock. The global economy has already exited a 4-decade era of stable growth and inflation to enter a period of heightened instability. And the new regime of increased unpredictability is here to stay. This, according to BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager. That means policymakers will no longer be able to support markets as much as they did during past recessions. Now, one of the reasons for that is because rates were already low. So, there was nowhere to go really on the other side for most of these central banks. A team of BlackRock strategists led by Vice Chairman Philip Hillenbrand put together this 2023 global outlook. And they're saying that recession is foretold as central banks race to try to tame inflation. Central banks won't ride to the rescue when growth slows in this new regime, contrary to what investors have come to expect. Equity valuations don't yet reflect the damage ahead. So don't expect, there's a lot of speculation out there that Jerome Powell is going to slow rate increases like everybody expects a December half-point increase. And that's exactly what may happen. But what we may see, and of course you hear my dog agrees, what we will probably see is a sustained period of those more moderate increases, which will gradually make money more expensive and lead to higher unemployment, which we will get to in just a minute. With regard to investing and picking up some of these assets, BlackRock had something interesting to say. What worked in the past won't work now. The old playbook of simply buying the dip doesn't apply in a regime of sharper trade-offs and greater macro volatility. That means simply that you can't expect just to have a dip and then just to ride on up out of it for the next decade. That's not the environment we're in. Although, according to Warren Buffett, there is a strategy that you might want to consider, employing with regard to investing in stocks during a period of recession. We don't see a return to conditions that will sustain a joint bull market in stocks and bonds of the kind we experienced in the prior decade. So things are going to change. That's the only constant anyway, right? Wall Street banks, from Morgan Stanley and Bank of America to Deutsche Bank, have warned that U.S. stocks could plunge more than 20% in 2023 due to an economic downturn and liquidity risk fueled by the Federal Reserve's interest rate increases. Goldman Sachs' CEO, David Solomon, sees just a 35% chance that the U.S. economy avoids recession. So he sees us going into a deeper recession. As I've said before, guys, look, we are in a recession, and this is defined as the United States of America has previously defined the concept as 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth. Now, so we went through a recession. They're saying that we came up on top and we had positive growth, but we did a video on the shenanigans they kind of played with that calculation. It causes us to question whether or not we did indeed have positive economic GDP growth throughout the economy in the third quarter of 2022. Now, here's the other shoe to drop. A slowdown in the housing market, delays in corporate investment plans, a decline in consumer savings, and deteriorating CEO confidence are early signs of the oncoming economic slump, according to Blackrock. Now, again, what we need to talk about here is what you do. How do you thrive this? Because you're not just going to, pick out a park bench and just call it a day. You've got to, move forward. You've got to find a way to take advantage of the situation, and there are ways to do just that. We don't think equities are fully priced for recession. Corporate earnings expectations have yet to fully reflect even a modest recession. This keeps us tactically underweight developed market equities. Developed markets like the United States, Germany, developed market equities, equity stocks. The S&P 500 of large cap U.S. stocks is up more than 12% from a 23-month low reached in October, spurred mainly by expectations that the Fed will slow the pace of interest rate increases after the recent retreat in inflation. I don't think the Fed has seen a large enough decrease in inflation in order to stop raising rates just yet. Remember, there were literally trillions of dollars thrown out onto the street after the governors of several states, ours included here in Maryland, decided to shut down the American economy. And then countries all over the world decided to do that. You cannot slam the brakes on an economy and expect there to be no casualties that come out of that. Now, take a look. I want you to take a look at this chart. All right, this is the Fed funds rate through, let's see, going back to 1970. You can see that during the 80s, when Paul Volcker was the Fed chair, he raised those rates very aggressively. And look, in 1981, we were at 19.04%, July of 1981. In March of 1981, we got to 19.08%. So these interest rates really, were at peaks that, we haven't seen in modern history. And here's where we are now, guys. We're at, November of 2022, 3.78%. So we got a long way to go. People are saying that Powell is aggressively raising these rates. And sure, I guess if you look at the past decade or so, that is true. However, it's nowhere near Volcker levels, and Volcker shut down inflation, but there was a lot of pain involved in doing that. Now, Bank of America is Citi, rather, not Bank of America. This is Citibank. They're saying that Americans need to brace themselves for losses in jobs up to 2 million job losses in 2023. Now, there's good news and there is bad news. The good news is that between September of 2008 and September of 2009, a total of 6.5 million jobs were lost during the Great Recession. So 2 million is, nothing compared to that, until you've got to figure out if you're going to be one of the 2 million that is left without a chair when the music stops from the standpoint of being an employee. Now, 2 million jobs lost. Okay, that'll be dispersed throughout the nation, of course. But it is going to have an effect on the economy in another way. Because even if you don't lose your job, there's that psychological effect of seeing other people lose their jobs. So what that tends to make people do, prudent people, it tends to make them pull back on spending. They tend to hoard money instead of spending it, on disposable, discretionary items. Okay. So that unemployment rate rising just doesn't have an effect just on the people who are unemployed, but it also has a reverberation in terms of the psychological effect we just spoke of. And then it also has an effect downstream on small businesses and their employees as well. Because if you've got, let's say you have a carry out where you fix different types of salads. There's one over not far from me called Vito's. I think everybody's got a Vito's in their town, right? Anyway, Vito's is great. They fix Italian cold cuts, different types of pasta dishes, my favorite, pizza and cheesesteak subs. And they, of course, are in an area. They're not far, as a matter of fact, from an investment firm, from a couple. And if those people lay off, let's say the investment firm goes through and lays off 150 people out of this 2 million, just 150, right? Well, you can imagine that at least part of the week, a portion of that 150 was going to Vito's, at some point during the year. So that is going to have a material effect on small businesses. Now, depending on what type of small business you have, sometimes your ego will get in the way of you making good decisions for your business. And one of the prime industries for that is the real estate agent. These folk, and listen, I'm not talking out of school. My wife is a real estate agent, but thank God my wife is a reasonable woman, and she is not, she makes very prudent business moves that are sans ego, okay? Just making the business move from the standpoint of what is good for the continuation of that business that we own. All right, and part of that included taking a look at a complementary business. Okay, so I'm in the financial services industry. My wife has a real estate license. And those two industries complement one another. So if you are a small business owner, this works in recessionary times and outside of recessionary times, good times and bad. But if you're in a recession, wouldn't it make more sense to be able to offer chocolate and peanut butter? If people are buying chocolate and then they say, it'd be great if I had some peanut butter to go with this. Don't you want to be able to say, hey, we got that too? Instead of having them leave your chocolate shop and then go down the block to the peanut butter shop and then buy it from there, okay? Because they're going to want it anyway, right? So you would be surprised at how many, or maybe you wouldn't, you would be surprised at how many real estate agents we've tried to convince of the efficacy of, pairing up two complementary products because you got the client anyway to be able to pivot in good times and bad, and to do this one important thing: to increase cash flow, to keep income coming in a diversified way. Income is king inside of a recession or outside of a recession. And if you cannot, or if you realize that you've got one line of business and that line of business is just taking it to the chin because we're in a recession, and you don't have anything to pivot to, well, that's what amounts to people leaving the business. In 2008 alone, 1.25 million realtors left the business. Now listen, I'm using them as an example, okay? But it doesn't matter what kind of business you own. You got to look for a complementary product or service to offer that your clients need anyway, okay? And think about either how to incorporate that directly into your business or create a situation whereby, maybe there's some referrals going on between you and that complementary company, that's owned by someone else, where you're getting some sort of residual, or work it out some kind of way. But remember, in these times, income is king. You got to keep it coming in. And one of the reasons why you have to keep it coming in is because you want to continue to purchase assets, be they stocks, be they, parcels of real estate or what have you. The recession is the best time to actually purchase low. All right. You always hear this talk about buy low, sell high, but then you find that there's a general lack of enthusiasm for assets when they are down. Okay. It's the wildest thing. But Walmart can say, hey, we're having a 15% off sale, and you will not be able to find a space in the parking lot because people respond to that. They want to buy low in that situation where they're actually purchasing something other than an asset, okay? Or like the car dealer. The car dealer will come on and say, hey, we're having a sale. Come in and buy this liability, and you can save a few bucks, maybe, okay? Just get you in the door. People respond to that. But when they come on TV and they say, the Dow was down 400 points today, people tend to get scared instead of getting enthusiastic about that. Now, I will say, you have got to do your own due diligence, and you have got to say, hey, look, I'm 65 years old. I shouldn't be in stocks, okay, based on your particular situation that you have to go in and take a look at for yourself. Now, one of the greatest investors out there in our time, Warren Buffett, he's saying that, basically echoing the conventional wisdom. What I'm saying, that, yeah, go out and look for bargains in equities, stocks, when we have a recession. He has been harping on this for a long time. If you look at his behavior, it's exactly what he does. Buffett looks at one of the most successful investments that he's ever had, which is Coca-Cola. In 2007, before the Great Recession, Coca-Cola stock peaked at just under $32 a share. In March of 2009, it had fallen to $19.55 per share. What truly changed about Coca-Cola's underlying business in that roughly year and a half span? What changed? The company still had a successful product with global distribution and one of the best known brands on the planet. Very little changed about the business. What really changed was investor sentiment, the perception of the company during a time when people were simply fearful about their economic future. Now, I've said this before. All right, you take Coca-Cola, for example. All right. People are going to continue to drink Coca-Cola. Now, if there is a situation that is so devastating on this planet, in this world, where people stop drinking Coca-Cola, I can assure you, you won't be worried about your stock portfolio anyway. If a meteor, a 10-mile wide meteor slams into the earth and, half the population is wiped out, okay, fine. We won't be worried about drinking Coca-Cola. But we won't be worried about what the daily result of the S&P 500 is either, okay? But barring something significant like that, if the world continues to do what it has done, which is go through these cycles of ups and downs and troughs and peaks, then we'll probably have people still consuming products from quality companies and, endeavoring and getting services from quality companies. And that's where your due diligence comes in. Investors who saw past the fear and bought shares of Coca-Cola were eventually rewarded. Coca-Cola shares currently sit at somewhere in the neighborhood of the low to mid $60 range. All right, depending on when you watch this. Okay, so that's what we've got going on, guys. Income is king. If you're an employee, same deal. What you may want to do is go out now while jobs are still plenty or pretty plentiful, okay? So maybe you can get that side hustle and devote all of the money from that to just socking it away for a rainy day, because you don't know if they come through Verizon or if they come through Facebook, Microsoft, or wherever it is you work and say, hey, look, hate to do it to you. You're a great guy, but we're going to have to lay you off. If they come through and do that, at least you got a cushion, okay? When the music stops, you have to have a chair. So you better start constructing your own chair right now. All right? That's the advice I have for you. And that is advice that I will give you. Construct your own chair. Now, how you construct that chair is up to you. It's up to your due diligence. But maybe getting that second job is a way to do it. I would caution you. Some people say, well, just start saving. Well, yeah, saving is good. Or cutting back, rather. Don't have the latte. Skip the night out. And yeah, where that makes sense, or turn off the streaming service. Sure, those things may work, but you can only save so much, okay? You can only save so much. After you've saved 100%, where are you? So you need to bring in income. You need to do that in part, like I said before, to continue to be able to purchase assets. Be they stocks, be they bonds, be they, again, apartment buildings, ETFs. I don't care what it is, what you decide is good for you. You've got to continue to do it. Because basically what Buffett is saying is continue that dollar cost averaging strategy, okay? If you're putting away $150 a week to invest, you got to keep doing that. In fact, you might want to increase that when the prices on certain assets drop. That's the way to win this, guys, for most people, okay? That way you will have that chair when the music stops. Okay, so there's a lot going on in the world today. One of the things I want you to do is take a look at this video we put together last week. It's talking about Bank of America and their warning about the job market. Now, we just heard from Citi. Go hear it from Bank of America as well. See what they have to say. All of them say something slightly different. But understand that more than likely we are going into a deeper recession. You need to be prepared for it, guys. Watch that video, and I will talk to you soon.